The base was a sprawling, harsh desert wasteland, stretching endlessly beneath the unforgiving sun. It hummed with the low buzz of machinery and the scattered sounds of young, eager officers working tirelessly on the latest military technology, drones. They were supposed to be the future of warfare, sleek, precise, and deadly. But today they were failing. In the heart of the chaos stood General Thomas Holden, a man whose reputation had been forged in battle. His eyes burned with frustration as he watched the simulation screen flicker, the drone spiraling out of control once again. His hand clenched into a fist, the sound of it slamming against the table echoed in the room. The simulation had failed, and so had his patience. The young officers, including Lieutenant Kai Jensen, looked nervously around, unsure how to fix the glitch, unsure how to fix the mess they'd been tasked with. They were all brilliant minds, but nothing had prepared them for the intensity of failure. Holden was fuming. His career, the program, everything was on the line. But there was one person standing in the back, unnoticed by most, the quiet, reserved Corporal Ava Ellis. She was the consultant, brought in to observe, to offer advice, and yet she had never been given the respect that came with her position. The others saw her as a mere formality, a civilian in fatigues, someone who didn't belong in their world. She was an outsider, and in their eyes she had no place fixing their program. Ava's presence was often dismissed. Her uniform, plain and worn, didn't match the polished ranks of the officers around her. Her posture was calm, unassuming, but there was an undeniable stillness in her gaze, a quiet authority that made the men in the room uncomfortable. She wasn't like the others. And that's why they never saw her coming. Holden turned sharply, his eyes landing on her. "You," he barked, his voice dripping with disdain, "you think you can fix this mess?" He motioned toward the screen. "I've been in this game longer than you've been alive. I don't need a consultant to tell me how to run things. Get out of the way." Ava didn't flinch. Her eyes met his, and in that brief moment, it was clear to her that Holden had never seen anyone like her. But she wasn't here for his approval. She was here to do a job. "I'm not here to control the drones, General," she said softly, her voice calm, yet carrying the weight of someone who had faced far worse than a simple failure in a simulation. "I'm here to show you how to work with them." Holden scoffed, rolling his eyes. "Work with them?" He laughed. "This isn't some simple manual for a toy. These are weapons. We control them. Don't think for a second that you have any clue about how this works." But Ava didn't waver. "Maybe it's you who doesn't understand, General," she replied, her words measured, each one calculated. "You treat them like machines to be controlled. But they're systems. They need to be understood, not dominated." Her words fell flat in the room, none of the officers paying her any mind. They were used to Holden's arrogance, used to him being the center of attention. But they were wrong. Ava was about to change the game. Holden stormed off toward the back of the command center, his mind racing. "This program is the future, and it's failing. You can't fix failure," he muttered to himself. But Ava, standing in the quiet corner of the room, took a deep breath and approached the control console. She wasn't here for petty arguments. She was here to fix what was broken. With calm precision, her fingers danced across the console. The drones on the screen flickered, hesitated, and then, miraculously, responded. For the first time, the drones didn't spiral out of control. They moved in perfect synchronization. The program, her program, was fixed. The room fell silent. The simulation ran seamlessly. Holden, who had been ready to dismiss her once again, stared at the screen, his mouth agape. He couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. His mind reeled. What was happening? He couldn't fathom how a civilian, someone he had written off as insignificant, had just solved what his entire team had been unable to. His grip tightened around the back of the chair as he watched the flawless performance unfold before him. This wasn't a failure anymore. This was victory, her victory. "Impossible," he muttered under his breath. "How did you do that?" Ava didn't answer right away. She didn't need to. Her actions had already spoken louder than words. But Holden wasn't ready to admit defeat, not yet. "Explain. What did you do?" His voice was laced with disbelief. Ava turned toward him, her gaze cool, unbothered by the weight of his question. "I didn't fix the drones," she said, her voice low. "I fixed the way you were thinking about them. Machines don't just obey commands. They follow instructions. If you push them too hard, they break. If you guide them, they will follow." Holden stared at her, the realization sinking in like a stone dropping into the pit of his stomach. He had lost. His arrogance had failed him. But before he could respond, a new figure entered the room. Lieutenant Kai Jensen approached the console, his face awestruck. General, it's working. He turned to Holden, disbelief in his eyes. She fixed it, sir. The drones, they're working. The other officers, once mocking Ava's presence, now stood in awe. Holden's expression remained unreadable, his jaw clenched. He had been bested by a civilian. A woman he had mocked, underestimated, and dismissed had done the impossible. The tension in the room was palpable. No one dared speak. The once dominant Holden stood frozen, his mind racing with the implications of Ava's success. She had just saved the program he had built his entire career on. And now all his previous mockery seemed foolish, empty. How had he not seen it coming? How had he not realized that someone like Ava, so quiet and unassuming, could hold the key to solving what he thought was an unsolvable problem? As the officers murmured among themselves, Holden slowly walked toward Ava. His steps were heavy, his pride bruised. He was no longer the unchallenged leader of the room. She had taken that from him. She had done what no one else could. Ava, however, wasn't here for applause. She wasn't here to gloat. She had a job to do. And now that she had done it, she had nothing left to prove. "General," she said softly, her voice calm but firm, "you're welcome." And with that, she turned and walked away. Holden didn't call after her. He couldn't. The damage was done. The power had shifted. Ava was no longer just the outsider. She had taken her place at the heart of the mission. But just as Ava reached the door, Holden's voice called out to her. "Ellis," he said, his voice quiet, almost hesitant. She stopped but didn't turn around. "You've saved the program. But why didn't you tell me who you really were? You've just made us all look like fools." Ava's gaze hardened. "Because, General," she said, her tone sharp, "I didn't need to prove myself to you. I needed to fix your mess. That's all." Holden stood there, a man undone by his own pride. He had been so certain of his control, so sure that his leadership was unquestionable. But it had taken Ava, a woman he had seen as weak, as irrelevant, to show him that true strength doesn't come from titles. It comes from humility, from knowing when to listen and when to let go. As Ava left the command center, the officers behind her stood in respectful silence. They had all learned a lesson today, whether they knew it or not. The world wasn't what it seemed, and neither was Ava. The base felt different now. The energy in the room had shifted. But Holden wasn't ready to let go. He couldn't. He was a man who thrived on control, and now it was slipping through his fingers. Ava walked away from the command center, her silhouette framed against the backdrop of the desert night. The stars above were bright, twinkling in the vast expanse of space. For a moment, she allowed herself a brief sigh, a moment of peace. But just as she reached the gate, a voice called out behind her. "Ellis." Holden's voice was low, tense. He had caught up to her, but this time there was no anger in his tone, just something darker, something dangerous. Ava turned slowly, her gaze cold. "General, you think it's over?" Holden's eyes were filled with something more than frustration now. There was fear. "I don't need you to tell me what to do anymore," Ava said, her voice calm, but her words razor sharp. "You don't control me." Holden's expression hardened. "This isn't over. You think you've won? You've just made things worse for yourself." The air between them crackled with tension. Ava's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that, General. We'll see." As she walked into the night, the desert wind carrying her away, Holden stood alone, the weight of his failure crushing him. What was coming next he didn't know. But he knew one thing. Ava Ellis had just changed everything. What does Holden's last threat mean for Ava's future? How far is General Holden willing to go to get back control? What other secrets does Ava's past hold? Will Ava finally get the respect she deserves, or will the battle for power continue? Stay tuned for part 2. The real war is only just beginning.